So we can start. And
Okay.
Sabina, I want to give the floor to you. Obviously, everybody
Yes.
that
I would
Sabina
love
is the president of CercleS.
yes. I would love to welcome you all to another certainly very inspiring webinar about selected interesting articles of our journal. And this format has proved to be a very interesting and also fascinating way of sharing the content or some content, selected content of our journal. And I would like also to thank all of you, all of the interviewers and all of the authors for allowing us to, to make this happen. And I would also like to thank, of course, Carmen and Gillian for their immense work they have been doing for the journal during these last 3 years and are still being involved in. Yes, I'm sure that the diversity of the topics you could see on the flyer, and we are going just to see on the slide from Carmen again, and of the backgrounds of the articles and the articles' authors will be another occasion to grasp the diversity and richness of the CercleS community. And I'm very much looking forward to it and give back the floor to you, Carmen.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Gillian is not here, I must say, I'm afraid. She sent a message, though, saying that she won't be able because of urgent family commitments. But she's looking forward to watching the recording at a later date. And then she writes, it is always a sense of achievement to reach the publication stage of the CercleS journal, but also for these meetings to take place where CercleS members and authors have the chance to interact, exchange ideas, opinions in an ever-growing and expanding academic community. These are greetings from her, and obviously you can imagine from me. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to this. Yes, we are the fifth webinar. Fifth webinar, it seems like yesterday when we started, but I just looked through the files that we have, and we did start, let me tell you, in April 2021, with the issue that was dedicated to enhancing the role of language center in the European context and beyond. And we will understand. Samuel is a great example of what it means beyond Europe. Then we had the second webinar in May 2022 dedicated to issue 11.1, and then December 2022 again dedicated to the 2022 issues, so 12.1, 12.2, and then last October we met and we devoted the webinar to the issue, the 13.1 issue. And today we are with a few authors, some very nice, very authors who we enjoyed your articles, and this is why we selected. We wanted to talk to you. We wanted to get to know you. It was really a pleasure for us. So in the past meetings, today we have the example, as I said before, Samuel from Japan, but we have so many other European countries. And in the past, we also hosted authors from Australia, from US America, from West Indies, from the Philippines. So the CercleS community really wants to welcome authors from all of Europe in particular, but because we are a European confederation, but also from all over the world. Mia, thank you, Mia. She's over there. She's hosting. She's playing with the slides, so maybe we can show the slides at this point, and then we will give the floor. Okay, here you can see that the title that Gillian and I gave to this issue. It's the variety of realities of language learning and teaching in higher education throughout the world. So a step forward to sharing ideas. And in the next slide, we can have a global look to all the people who are with us today and will be interviewing and be interviewed. In fact, a great thank you goes to Zan, Carmen, Teresa, and Yana, who accepted to be our interviewers today. But if we go to the next slide, obviously, we will concentrate on 4 different topics today. But if we have a look at the context of the, maybe we can, let's see if we can share. Okay, thank you, Mia. If we have a look at the journal, Mia just got connected on the website, and you can see that there are so many other articles, so interesting to be read, so interesting to reflect about, etc. This is the nice part of the CercleS journal, that yes, today we have the chance to talk with 4 of you, or a few more than 4, because in one case, the article was written as co-authors, but at the same time, there are so many others articles that are really worth reading. Thank you, Mia. Let me see if we can see the next one. Well, the idea, once again, is that the CercleS journal wants to reach some specific objectives. And the most important ones are to actually publish and share the outcomes of research on language learning and teaching. And our idea, our wish is to disseminate the best results of research and teaching activities carried out at university language centers and departments in higher education. And obviously, like we will be doing today, sharing ideas among professionals involved in language studies, and as a consequence, increase the quality of language learning and the so many teaching and learning actions that we actually carry out in the higher education context. Once again, here we highlight throughout the European context and beyond. At this point, I will give the floor to Samuel Mfor. Did I pronounce it correctly, Samuel?
Perfect, perfect.
And Zan Bester, please, with your interview.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carmen, and in absence also to Gillian, for another interesting webinar with interesting articles and authors. So I am happy to introduce to you Dr. Samuel Mfor from the Seitoku University in Japan. But his journey has taken him through various countries because so I would like you to tell us something, but I just want to say that your journey started in Cameroon and then you went to the UK, and it's been Germany and Japan. So could you just tell us something about yourself and your background, which is not a conventional background for somebody who would publish in this journal, if you know what I mean?
Thank you very much. So like you said, I am originally from Cameroon, which is a West African nation. Cameroon has 280 indigenous languages with no mutual intelligibility. We have English and French as the official languages, and we have Cameroon Pidgin English, which is a lingua franca. So I graduated from university in Cameroon with a master's degree in performing arts. I and 2 of my friends, we had our own theater company, and we were performing across the country. Then there was an international theater festival in Cameroon.
Mm-hmm.
I participated in the festival, and that is where I met the first Japanese in my life.
Okay.
And from that meeting, my life changed dramatically. So this Japanese theater scenography, we talked about theater.
Yes.
And a year after that, she recommended me to the Ministry of Culture of Japan.
Okay.
I won a Japanese government scholarship, moved to Japan and studied Japanese theater for 1 year, but it's been 22 years today.
And then in between, you've also, believe, done your master's. Did you say your master's in England and then your
No.
PhD in Germany? But just tell us about those connections as well.
So when I moved to Japan I studied Japanese theater for a year. After that, I tried to make a breakthrough in Japanese theater, to be a performer, to be an actor. But language was a barrier. In Cameroon, language was also a barrier because there are many languages. I speak only one indigenous language. So I performed in Tokyo for about a year or two. It was tough to bring home enough bacon. So I branched out to language education. And I was teaching in junior high schools and high schools in Japan. But I did not have autonomy in the classroom, and I thought I want to work in a university. So I did a master's in linguistics online with the Open University in the UK. And I got work in university, part-time contract work. But the whole idea of doing a PhD came from Model United Nations. So when I was working at university part-time, I was on campus and I saw a poster which read Model United Nations. And this caught my attention because I'm coming from a theater background. And modeling is a very important theater element. So I went closer to get to know what Model United Nations is. Model United Nations, like the name says, is a simulation of the United Nations, adapted for academic purposes, which includes elements of discussion, of negotiation, of debate, of presentations on global issues and international affairs. When students join Model United Nations, they are referred to as country delegates. They are representing different countries. And I saw that as theater.
Because you're playing a role, right? You're playing the role of somebody else. You are playing the delegate. As a Japanese student, you might be a delegate of France or, you know, of any other country.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So so this was interesting to me, and the whole idea of PhD came from this.
Okay, and you did it at a university in Germany, if I'm right.
I did it at the Darmstadt University in Germany.
Darmstadt University. Okay, and then just quickly, one last thing before I get into the content questions, because I think not everybody might understand the idea of Model United Nations. So it's a course that runs over a semester and the students would attend every week, and in every lesson there would be a different task. For example, in this lesson you negotiate or you present or you debate. Can you maybe just explain that a little bit to us?
Yeah, Model United Nations is a course in some undergraduate programs all over the world. And some universities in Japan have a Model United Nations program as an elective course. So students self-select to join the course. One of the criteria is that because the content is quite demanding, students must have OIC 600, that's the SAFAR B1 level to join the program. And usually the course centers around sustainable development goals, be it climate change, be it hunger, be it education of the girl child, be it health. So students have to research the countries they are representing. There is a dominant culture. That's why the context in my paper, I refer to it as a pluricultural context. They have to research a country and write a position paper about a theme of the conference.
Okay.
And they have to be in committees and discuss these position papers and come up with a resolution
Okay.
before they go to a Model United Nations conference.
Conference where they actually discuss.
Where they actually discuss.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this context was a very interesting platform for you, or area for you to focus on intercultural communicative competence, and that was the focus of the article that you published in the LLHE. The Model United Nations, a thematic analysis of Japanese EFL students' reflections on intercultural communicative competence. So my first question is, you've already answered that you were drawn by your theatre background and because you saw the poster, but what inspired you to explore this topic of the Model United Nations, but then its impact on the intercultural communicative competence among Japanese EFL students?
Okay, thank you. So most EFL classes in Japan are monolingual. They are all Japanese students. They are all 18 years old or 19 years old. So Japanese don't have a lot of contact with people from different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. That's one. And the world is getting smaller and interconnected. And I think these students need to be aware of different cultures. Michael Byram defines intercultural communicative competence as the ability to communicate appropriately, effectively with people from different linguistic and cultural backgrounds in a foreign language. So I saw Model United Nations as a platform for students to touch other cultures, because Model United Nations in Japan, 70% are Japanese students, 30% are international students studying in Japan. So that's what inspired me to look at intercultural communicative competence.
So what were your initial expectations or hypotheses going into the research? And then when your findings sort of emerged at the end, did that align with your expectations or did it challenge your expectations?
Okay. So my initial hypothesis was to see how Japanese students think, what were their perceptions, what were their experiences communicating with students from various linguistic and cultural backgrounds who have different proficiencies of English and different varieties of English. When students come from different linguistic backgrounds with cultural backgrounds, in communication, it is highly likely that misunderstandings would occur, and which could lead to a communication breakdown. How would they manage this? And this is the kind of life they will experience when they leave the classroom. Like I said, the world is a small global village. In such situations, how do they, get out of it? And that's why I looked at mediation, how they mediate communication to avoid communication breakdown. Did it align with this expectation? Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, from the outset, students really hesitated to get involved. Japanese students are very shy. Japanese students are worried about making mistakes, which avoid their communication. But as the program it ran for a semester, they got used to it, and at the end, from what I got from interview data, it was life-changing for some. Some students decided to study abroad to communicate with people from different cultures more because of what they experience at Model United Nations, for example.
That's fantastic. That's a wonderful exposure in that small sort of microcosm to then apply to a bigger context. That's a really amazing exposure that they received there. So
That's right.
can you quickly give us just a brief overview? So you mentioned mediation. I know that mediation was key in your article. So just quickly tell us a brief overview for those maybe who haven't had the time to read it of your article's focus and then the main findings that you got.
Okay, so the focus of the article was on how students in their committees, with very little teacher intervention, how they communicated. And I used the intercultural communicative competence model of Michael Byron, which includes one, openness and curiosity, which includes critical cultural awareness, which includes knowledge of others, skills of interpreting, and knowledge. So how were the students open and curious about different cultures was something I was looking out for. How did the students, how were they conscious with the skill of critical cultural awareness? I will try to explain one of these skills in the model before I look at it, before I explain how it played in students' data. Critical cultural awareness, for example, and a personal story. When I go to class on the first day in Japan, and I ask students, well, we are going to do introductions today. The first question is, where are you from, sir? And I throw it back to the students. Please guess. And they will say, you're from America, from the UK, from Canada, from Australia, from New Zealand. These 5 countries, and in most cases, in this order. Well, I am not from any of these countries, so could you, I give them hints now, I am from, a country where soccer is very popular. Then they'll go Brazil or Chile or Germany. So I am never offended that students don't, but I use it as an opportunity to educate them, to create awareness. So it's the same thing with Model United Nations. When students, for a Japanese student, is a delegate, a representative of South Africa, she has to research South Africa and talk about South Africa in class and talk about the differences. Does that student accept those differences? I would need to hear and understand from their conversations to know if that student is open or curious, even though he or she, representing South Africa, experiences things which are very different from Japan.
Yeah, so the communicative context is completely different from what they're used to.
Yeah, but I need to understand their attitudes towards the problems they see in different countries vis-a-vis their own country. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, for example, a student was representing Bangladesh, and when the student read about Bangladesh, I think it was about hunger, and I could tell when the student was reporting about Bangladesh, sympathy. Intercultural sympathy is one of the elements of you experience to gain intercultural communicative competence, as explained by Byron. So I could get into intercultural empathy. I could get things like skill of relating. So this I got from their interview data.
Yeah, and those are really valuable aspects of intercultural communicative competence,
Sure.
being able to relate to people from another culture.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to now look at sort of the application of your findings. What do you hope that the broader implications will be of this research within language education, of course, but maybe even possibly beyond that, since we're talking about beyond, as Carmen said earlier?
Sure. You see, one thing I would like to do going forward is investigate Model United Nations again, but look at the theatrics, because I'm coming from a theater background, looking at non-verbal modes of communication and what they meant to the students. The students dressed in a particular way. That's costume. There's facial expressions, movement, posture, distance, prosody. These are theatrical elements which are, present in Model United Nations. That's something I would like to investigate further, and hopefully write a good paper and publish with the language learning in higher education. That's one thing I would like to do. Second, I would like I hope teachers can adapt Model United Nations and run it in class, not necessarily go to a conference.
Absolutely.
Simpler versions, yeah.
Yes.
And I hope also in the future to have my own Model United Nations program in my university. I observed other teachers, but my university is really conservative, so I will need to apply and hope that I get permission to run a Model United Nations program. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I hope that showing these positive outcomes will help in that regard, for you. And then the last question that I'm going to ask you is, so looking back now on the study, which also formed part of your PhD, and now that you have the luxury of sitting back after the PhD a little bit, what key lessons or insights have you personally taken away from the whole research process? And you've mentioned about maybe taking this idea of the theatrics further, but are there any other plans that you have for taking some of the lessons that you've learned from this process further?
One of the lessons I got from this study, which I would like to work on going forward, is to do mixed method. I limited this study, it was purely qualitative. So, and sometimes, we get a lot of criticisms. Qualitative research is subjective. So I will, going forward, I would like to, give a quantitative dimension to future publications. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for telling us something about this model, about the lessons that you learned, about the impact on the students, and we wish you the best of luck also in your own endeavors at your university to implement this obviously very useful tool. And it's amazing how nicely it connects with your background in theatre, and we wish you well. And thank you very much for joining us. And if you want to be excused and go to bed, but before you go to bed, perhaps we can ask Carmen if we would allow some questions, or would you want to keep those to the end?
Yes. In fact, for those the other people who joined us later, Samuel is actually a different time schedule, so it's almost midnight, I believe, at this point. But thank you. Actually, we're perfectly on time. Thank you, Zan, for leading this first interview, and thank you, Samuel, for the context that apart from what we read in your article, you gave us so many more details, even from a personal point of view, and I really appreciate it. I jotted down a few things. I like the fact that you linked you created actually this link between you being an actor and a university student. And then you touched on pluricultural context where you work. I really appreciated that you talked about sustainable development and the idea and the importance of raising awareness in our students. Thank you. Thanks a lot to the two of you. And as Zan suggested, we have questions from participants at the very end of the webinar, but since Samuel may be leaving us, if you have questions that you want to ask him, please do it now.
Anybody who wants to ask a question in the chat or raise a hand, please let us know.
No questions. So we're still a little bit shy.
They're like the Japanese students. They're a little bit shy.
But obviously, Samuel, if you stay with us until the very end, we will be more than happy, because we will be also mentioning a few things about CercleS conference at the end, CercleS activities in general, and we will be very happy to share this information with you. Okay.
Sure.
The two of you, and I saw the Carmen arrived. Are you ready? Are you there?
Yes, yes, managed to get in. Thank you very much. I'm really sorry for the delay.
No problems at all. What happened at the other event? How did it go?
I finished it, and then I let my colleagues answer questions, and then I came away here.
So, point we will leave Zan and Samuel, and we will go to Vicent Beltran Palanques from the Universitat Homed Castellón in Spain. He will be talking about, actually, he will be interviewed by Carmen. Oh, that is a difficult surname. Kalyanawala, correct?
Yeah, not bad.
Wonderful. Carmen she's located at the University of Lorraine, and they will be talking the article the article that you will find in this LLHE issue, Digital Multimodal Pechak presentations in ESP, insights from students' experiences and students actually learning experiences. Once again, if you didn't have the chance to read Samuel for article and Vincent article, we really encourage you to do so because they are interesting, all of these interesting articles. Carmen, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Carmen. It just seems we've got both the same names. Mine is with an N-N-E, yours is without one. Okay. So hi, Vicent. Would you like to probably introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd like to start like thanking you for extending this invitation, because I was really honored actually when I received the email saying you'd like to participate in this. I was like, okay, I will. And then I had a conversation with Carmen online, and then I met Carmen, the second Carmen, and then we talk about this. And I found it a great idea. It's a way to to meet the authors and get to know more about what other people are doing. So I'll introduce myself very briefly. I come from the Department of English Studies at Universitat Jaume I in Spain, although actually I'm at the University of Vienna, and although my home university would be in Spain, I'm spending some time in Vienna I'm a guest researcher here, and I do belong to two different research groups, both in Spain. One is the GRAPE and the other one is Prodigy, and in both groups we look at like English for academic and specific purposes. That's one of the main things that we look at, and also English medium education, and of course multimodality. So this is why I look at multimodal literacy in the paper that I submitted for the journal. And well, you're free to ask Carmen. I don't know. I can talk about myself, but I think people won't be so
think I'll
interested.
I'll just take it from here. If we get back to your article, probably for people who've not read, can you probably tell us what a Picha Kucha presentation is?
Okay, so well, it's actually this links to Japan actually. So we go to Japan again. It's a well, Pechakucha presentations are, from our perspective, is a multimodal genre. So that's the first thing I like to say, and it consists of short presentation, like very brief. It's just 6 minutes and 40 seconds. It involves 20 slides, so each slide lasts 20 seconds, and those slides are transitioned automatically. And this traces back to Japan in the sense that it was two architects, I think from the Netherlands, who are aware, no, no, in Tokyo, and they had a kind of event at that moment. So they decided to come up with this idea of, okay, we're gonna have presenters, but the presenters will have to make those presentations very, very concise. So they come up with the idea of Pechakucha presentations, which actually in Japanese, I think has a meaning, which is like a small chat or something like that. So they come up with the idea of having presenters presenting a topic, but do not spending much time on a particular slide. So it was more like dynamic and with some time constraints. And that's the genre itself. And it has become popular along with other, let's say, short presentation formats. We might find like elevator pitch presentations, which are like 1 to 3 minutes, product pitch presentations, 3-minute presentations, 3 minutes only. So it seems that more and more we're seeing these kind of genres that are emerging for whatever reason, probably because we want to consume information in a very fast way. But this is the genre. So 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide. And they are usually, each of the slides are usually quite visual, meaning that the text is kept to a minimum. And then we actually analyze some slides for another research that we carry out, and we found that in most cases, text was kept, to the minimum, because the important thing is to combine the speech, so what the presenter transmits orally, with the visual support. And that's the complexity, I would say, of presenting and creating and presenting a Pechakucha presentation, something that has to be really effective so that the audience understands the content, combining the visual support and then what the presenter says. Yeah.
So it's some form of storytelling then. In one way, you're telling a story through images, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's more like, you have like 20 slides, and those 20 slides, you need to talk about a given topic. So in my case, my students report on a video game narrative, because I teach English for specific purposes in the area of video games. So they need to tell a story, so to say, of what they have done, including all the processes. And I want them to be very visual. So it's like storytelling, digital storytelling. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, pretty much. So since you spoke about ESP, that kind of aligns to the next question. Why is it important for teachers of English for specific purposes to focus on this kind of multimodal literacy?
Yeah, well, I think we should think first about what is meant by multimodal literacy. I mean, probably most of you are familiar with this idea, but I'd like to refer to the concept. I mean, since this multimodal term coined by Chewitt, we understand that communication is multimodal. So we make use of a variety of modes to construct meaning. And then translating that into the classroom implies that in the context of education, this implies that we need to promote, we need to go beyond traditional literacies understood as reading and writing. So as the New London Group will support is this idea of trying to integrate a richer variety of modes that all contribute to constructing the meaning. Let's say images, videos, gestures, or like here, for example, we are in an online context. So we're using different modes of communication to transmit something, and we're using a different kind of medium. So there are some kind of literacies, skills or abilities we need to foster in the classroom to make the students aware of the use of those modes to construct meaning. And then translating that again to the ESP context, our idea is that ESP students as future professionals need to learn how to communicate effectively in current times. And current times involves going beyond writing an email, of course. It involves learning how to, for example, project their voices through videos, create podcasts, for example, create videos, write, I don't know, like blogs or whatever they do today, participate in online exchanges. So this involves that other literacies beyond those traditional, like reading or writing that I did when I was at school, should be promoted. And this is what we try to do in the classroom. And there are many colleagues in the area working on this. And the idea is to help students move beyond this traditional, if I may, communicative competence. I mean, trace back to Himes, if you like. There was very much based on language only. And the idea is that we can look at different things. And we do it in the ESP context, although we can also focus on EAP as well in the academic context. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or even generalized English, if
exactly,
personal narratives or whatever, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have examples of how these presentations can be integrated into the teaching curriculum?
Yes, actually, in the paper, I think I discussed this multimodal gender perspective. So I draw a multimodal gender perspective to integrate pedagogy presentations. I have examples from my students. I can show them as well if you want to. So the idea is that what we do in the classroom, pedagogically speaking, I don't know if that was your question. I think it goes in that line, I guess. Yeah. But what we do in the classroom is to deconstruct the genre following genre-based pedagogies. And we explore the genre looking at the structure, of course. So there's like kind of introduction, like topic development, which takes actually the most of the presentation, and then a conclusion. And I say that the topic development takes most of the time in the presentation because the presentations are very short. It's just 6 minutes and 40 seconds. So the very beginning and the very last part of the presentation are actually to say hello and goodbye. And then in the central part of the study, the presentation, the students really need to present their topic. And I'm using these three structures like intro, setting up, topic development, and conclusion because my colleague, Dr. Carol and me and myself wrote an article and then in which we explore these and we found the basic structure. So we in class analyze the structure and then we start looking at the way presenters represent content. And content is represented by what they say and what they visually represent on the slides. And we pay attention to the slides as well to see the connection between what is visually represented and then orally said. And we try to see the connections between both because both really need to match. I know it sounds obvious, but when you look at a real video, a real pedagogy presentation, it's not so easy. Basically, because for each slide, I have 20 seconds and they are transition automatically. So there's only 20 seconds for you to do it. And then my students go crazy because at the beginning, they say that, oh, that's very easy in the sense that, okay, once they have selected the images, they say, okay, now I need to think about what to say. And I'm like, yes, there's only 20 seconds for you. And then they start, rethinking about how to do things. And then another aspect that we look at in the classroom is how to establish interpersonal meaning. It might be obvious for people who are experienced presenting, but then when it comes to students, they might face some problems. In most cases, they present without considering that there's an audience, even when they are like, face-to-face presentations. So we also look at the strategies that presenters can use to establish interpersonal relations with the audience. Strategies for engagement or showing authority, going back to Highland. But the thing is that we look at those three things. So the structure, the multimodal composition of the slides and the intersemiotic relation and the interpersonal meaning, how to establish interpersonal meaning.
Yeah, but for students who are creating such presentations, what concrete advice could you give them then?
Well, basically what I would say is that they really need to think about the content they want to transmit.
Yeah.
Because the time is limited and there's only 20 slides, and for each slide is 20 seconds. And in the case of my students, they transfer from a video game narrative, which is a document maybe 20 pages. So those 20 pages, so to say, need to be transferred into 20 slides. And in those 20 slides, they need to tell me a story about what they have done. So they really need to make decisions. So it's about choices. So they need to choose what is relevant. And they need to create something that really matters for the audience. So I try to promote criticality in the classroom. They need to be critical about what they do. They need to explore the content they presented in the written format, and then think about how to transfer. If you start from scratch without any written project, I would say the same. You need to critically decide what you want to tell the audience, and the audience really need to understand what you're saying. There's no time for digression at all. They need to understand what you're saying in those 6 minutes.
And
Yeah.
20 seconds per slide. So the
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do you evaluate it? How do teachers go about evaluating such presentations? Is it per slide? Is it based on what's spoken, or do you look at what happens on the slide and what they say at the same time?
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing, because I go to these asks by my students as well, and then we talk about assessment in the classroom as well. And say, hey, you're gonna look at the entire thing, and they are like, really? What does it mean? So it means that when I assess those presentations, I look at the entire canvas, including what they say and what they visually represent. So it means that I go beyond the linguistic features. Of course, language is part of the assessment, but I also look at the relation between those embodied actions, the visual support, how the visual support reinforces what they say and the other way around, whether there's a coherent connection between the visual support and what they say. And of course, I also look at the interpersonal relation they establish with the audience. The funny thing is that these presentations are done in digital format, which means that they do it at home with no real audience. They video record themselves, which is very challenging. They need to figure out that there's an audience there, and they need to meet all together. They do it in groups, which is actually even more challenging, because imagine that they have 5 students in a group, so they need to divide the number of slides for each presenter. And sometimes they make a kind of collage, and it's like, okay. Other times they meet all together in a Zoom, for example, and they video record themselves. And you see, it's more coherent, actually. Yeah. But they need to think about this imaginary audience, and they need to try to address. This is one of the things that I also encourage them to think about this audience, even though they are alone in their rooms. So yeah, I look at the entire composition, the visual, the verbal, and the way those strategies are used to engage the audience.
Yeah, but so you're working with video data, right? That's provided by students. So what about data protection regulations? Do you get your students to sign stuff before?
Yeah, because this is for pedagogical purposes.
Yeah, so that's fine.
So yeah, it's fine. Indeed, in real videos or in real Pechakucha presentations, there's a website. You can check. It's pechakucha.com, something like that. And you see that real Pechakucha presentations involve only the slides and then the voice. So you don't see the person presenting. Rarely you put. Oh. And then in the classroom, what we do is that we have the student, of course, presenting, and I need to see the face of the person. But it's basically because I need to know who the person is speaking is. And then this is for pedagogical purposes. So then, yeah, I try to protect that. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah. We've got time for one more question, which is a tough question.
Okay.
Now that you've worked on multimodal literacies, do you think that there are literacies that students need with online translation tools and with AI coming in and all of that? Do you think that what they learn with Pecha Kucha presentations could be applied to their future with all these different types of digital tools that are coming in?
Well, I think that the fact of engaging the students in multimodal literacy activities helps them to reflect upon the variety of literacies and digital resources they can use to construct meaning and to gain information and to navigate information. And then when it comes to, for example, the use of artificial intelligence, like generative artificial intelligence, or even digital translation tools, I'm thinking about DeepL, for example. I believe the students can use them in the classroom. I'm happy with that. And I guess they will use them in the professional context as well, like AI, the one that we all use, ChatGPT. I agree with that. I support the use, pedagogically speaking, as well. But I think we need to help them to critically analyze what they do. So prohibiting the use is wrong to me, and not knowing what to do with those tools in the classroom is not the best choice. So I think that because we're entering a terrain in which students learn from different literacies, they construct the knowledge drawing on different literacies, developing digital literacies, etc. I think we need to integrate the knowledge that we are promoting in the classroom to make use of those tools, and then enhance the criticality. So they need to become critical about what they do, and they cannot take everything for granted. They need to critically analyze. So for that, you need some kind of knowledge. Of course, I'm in favor of promoting multiliteracies.
Yeah, so multimodal literacies could probably help them in the future with all these different coming up. I think we're all very interested in looking at a presentation. So if you've got an example to share with us, we've got 5 minutes.
Okay, so you're gonna see the face of a student and a student, but okay, I have some examples. I'm not sure about the sound, but let's see if it works. A sec. I need to open myself first.
Hello everyone. My name is Francisco Javier, and the journey I chose to disable
I need
is
to
roguelike.
wait.
In this presentation, I will talk
I
about
need
the
to
design
stop
of the
it
area,
first, and
the
then
gameplay, the level distribution, the characters, and the music.
okay. So now share screen. I'm not allowed to share screen now. So I should have the permission to do so.
I think somebody can give you. I think Carmen
Mia, I think you need to give him rights to share his screen. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, Vicente, we're taking
Sorry, I should have mentioned it, but then we had a discussion with
That's okay, that's okay,
We really want to watch, we really want to see what students do concretely. What does a Pecha Kucha mean?
Yes, because it's a very intriguing kind of.
You are now co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah. So I guess this one works for me. Do you see it?
Yeah. Roguelike. How interesting. We probably won't watch 7 minutes. We'll probably just watch a few seconds or.
Yeah, actually, this is a student. I mean, he did 7. He made it for 7. It should be 6 and 40. So this is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's just start for 20. Okay, so here maybe, and the slides change automatically. You will see.
Okay. I chose the roguelike genre due to its characteristics, which are its emergent narrative mixed up with a lot of items and interactive objects, and together with random dungeon generator and map, makes the game experience different each time that the game is played. Second, the idea of the game was inspired by some known games.
So, for example, in the previous one, to me there was too much text, But if you realized, I mean, it was 20 and then change the slides, 20, change the slides, and they are mainly visual.
Binding of Isaac, Enter the Gungeon, Hyperlight Drifter, and Tunic, which is still in development. This game is meant to be developed in 3 dimensions with a cartoonish graphic design and a third-person camera. The next thing I will talk about is about the genre and the gameplay of the game. The game is set in a dark fantasy world.
One of the things that happens is that sometimes in those 20 seconds they prepare to say something. So then imagine that they are like 18 seconds and they've said everything. So sometimes they keep silent for 2 seconds. Then they start again. Yeah, because they don't want to do it again. And actually, when I talk to them, they say, yeah, I did this because this and that. And I understand. This is one of the things that they stop before the 20 seconds. And in other occasions, you see that students go beyond those 20 seconds. So the slide has changed and they keep on talking about the previous slides. And that's interesting in the sense that they learn how to, I mean, the example was very short, sorry, but it's just for you to see what they do. And sometimes they speak more than they expected to. Sometimes they just keep silent. Like, okay, I'm going to wait for 2 seconds and then the next slide comes up and then I can continue talking because they kind of memorize, so to say, not really memorize, but they prepare themselves for the event, so to say. Yeah.
But if they practice, then they can probably get their timing right as well, right?
Exactly. And yeah, I haven't chosen the best example. I've just chosen one example. But in some cases, you see students that really prepare themselves for this, and they effectively transmit content, and it's fantastic in the sense that you see the slides are very accurate, the slides are very significant, and they really contribute to the meaning. In this case, the density of the slides was too much, so too much content was shared. So sometimes it's much better to keep it to minimum if the image is, very significant. And some students really work hard and they struggle and they rehearse and they come to me and say, hey, I've tried to do this, but it doesn't work because I don't think this image really represents what I want to say. So in class we work, we devote some sessions to prepare, some time to prepare these slides as well. And I see they questioning what they do in the classroom, and they call me and say, hey, need your help for this. And then, but I want them to take those decisions on themselves, because you're an adult, you gotta think. But yeah, we work on the visual support as well.
But do you think that students who are generally good at PowerPoint presentations will be good at picture? Wouldn't you? Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think the knowledge they have can be transferred.
Yeah.
And then I think we need to, in the classroom, we need to make those connections as well. Like, if they are very good at creating PowerPoint presentations, like plain presentations, like regular presentations, that knowledge can be transferred. In this case, okay, you gotta tell them that text must be kept to the minimum, and then enhance the visual support. But yeah, I think everything helps. And with my students in particular, because they study video game engineering, they tend to be very visual, most of them, and some are very artistic, so to say. Others are very into audio. So when you mix groups, when you have mixed groups, it's fantastic because some of them really know how to project visual support because they love arts and drawing, etc. Others are more technical. So then the combination of different people is brilliant. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks very much. It was very interesting. Thank you very much. I finally saw what a picture presentation looks like. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Carmen, for the interesting questions and also for inviting Vicent to show, because I was, I think all of us were becoming really curious to know we're used to so many other typologies of presentations, but this one seems a very intriguing one. And then I agree with you when you said they have to prepare a video, and sometimes they don't have an audience in front of them. And this is the most difficult part, you know, imagining the audience on the other side. Thank you to the two of you. And at this point, we can move to the third presentation. So I give the floor to Teresa Ting, and Teresa will be interviewing Yavuz Kurt, Yasemin Baykurt, and Yedi Tipi. I really hope, no, actually, Yedi Tipi, no, it's just the Yasmin, sorry about that. The title is University English Medium Instructions in Turkey. The perspective of the instructors, what instructors say. Teresa, please.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Carmen, for this opportunity to speak to Yavuz and Yasmin. Yavuz, would you like to start by introducing yourself and then lead into the research? And then I'll have some questions to ask you.
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. I am Yavuz Kurt. Happy to be here with you today, and many thanks for the invitation. My educational background is English language teaching, and I am working as a novice assistant professor at Marmara University ELT department in Istanbul. And I completed my PhD about 2 years ago in Boğaziçi University Foreign Language Education. The publication we will be discussing here today is actually part of my PhD, and my co-author Yasemin could not make it to here today, but she is indeed my PhD supervisor. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Yavuz. Yes, Yasmin said she's in Iceland. Probably nice and fresh there. Okay, the first question I have for you, Yavuz. Now, your work involved the university EMI, English Medium Instruction Context, and ELF, English as a Lingua Franca. So a question that comes to mind would be, as all these universities all over the world, as we all know, are hosting more and more international students, and also the instructors are moving here, there, and everywhere for short or long periods of time. How did that affect your institution's approach to language education, the context in which you researched?
Yeah, sure. First of all, maybe I should explain why we conducted this study. As you said, the main motivation was the increasing number of international students. Each year, we tend to have more and more international students, and how this affects the dynamics of the classroom in higher education context, and how we should respond to that. The first thing we discussed and we observed is probably the recognition of English as a lingua franca, the focal concept of the paper as well. Institutions, higher education institutions, they should acknowledge that English often functions as a common language in these contexts, serving as the common language for communication among students and staff with different native languages. And this recognition should influence, of course, the assessment practices to account for the variation and use and proficiency levels among students. The second thing is how institutions should approach these issues, they should take into account the backgrounds of students. Given that they come from very different backgrounds, assessments should be inclusive and consider the different language experiences and competencies that students bring to the classroom. In Turkey, we usually tend to have more students from the Middle East and Far East, and African students as well. So maybe taking backgrounds of those students can help the situation a little bit. And a further thing would be probably adaptation of the assessment criteria. Institutions can consider adapting assessment criteria to reflect the communicative demands of academic ELF context. This may, for example, involve valuing clarity and effectiveness of communication and the ability to negotiate meaning over adherence to native speaker norms of grammar and pronunciation. Maybe another thing is the use of multiple assessment methods can also be useful here. This is independent from the varieties of English and the diversity, etc. Just the fact that using multiple assessment tools can be quite helpful, such as portfolios, presentations, interviews, and group projects. These things can provide a more comprehensive picture of students' linguistic abilities coming from diverse contexts. And this can kind of mitigate the limitations of traditional exam-based assessments, standardized assessments in the Turkish context. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay. And how was this, wasn't this difficult to implement at the university level? I mean, are you talking about EMI context or EFL context in ELF? I mean, could you explain that to everybody?
Yeah, sure. The system here in Turkey is that if you are going to receive education through English, so if you are going to be in the context of EMI, you have to spend a year, a preparation year, to get ready for that. And during the process, the students receive academic English preparation for their departmental courses. So we collected data from that context when the students were receiving education, English support, so that they can pass the proficiency and move to their departments and receive English medium instruction. So the preparation is for English medium instruction, but they most of the time focus on linguistic competencies.
What level are they expected to reach before they enter the EMI programs?
The current situation is that they have to prove their proficiency through exams like IELTS or TOEFL, or an in-house exam that kind of mimics IELTS and TOEFL. And the education that whole year prepares the students for that.
So B1, B2, C1?
It's B2 level. They are supposed to reach the B2 level. But the problem here, what we problematize, is that you kind of give a test to students that reflects native speaker norms and accuracy. But when they come to English medium instruction context, when they walk into their classrooms, the situation is kind of different. It's not the kind of language they hear. It's not the kind of language they produce and they are exposed to. That's the dilemma.
Okay. Let's see. I wrote some questions here. I have a question here. You talk about ELF awareness, and I like that. I like that idea of being an ELF aware instructor. Could you tell us about you interviewed 10 teachers, etc. Would you like to tell us about that, and tell us how these teachers became more ELF aware and how you use that framework to help them design their instruction?
Yes.
Thank you.
The teachers in our context received an instruction that is based on a previous study of Bayurt and Spakis called ELF-aware teacher education. The education is a stepwise process, and teachers during that process has to become familiar with the literature and research in the area of ELF. That's the first step. And during that step, the main aim is to make them question the existing norms, question the existing ways of doing, ways of teaching. So when they get that critical perspective, the next step is to encourage them to come up with ideas, how to reflect that criticality, how to use their new perspective in a pedagogical perspective. And they try to design lessons, they plan lessons. If they have learner groups, they maybe, for example, pilot their lessons with their learners. So the second step is the implementation phase. They come up with ideas and they put these ideas into practice. Some of them may work, some of them may not work. And that's kind of feedback for them and for us. And the third step is thinking about the whole process. So it's an evaluation phase. You think about what could be more useful for their future practices and what is more or less likely to be implemented in their school context, because sometimes they are also constrained by the educational circumstances or the institutional circumstances, let's say. So they go through this three-step education. And the most difficult step here is the first step, where they are encouraged to get critical on their existing beliefs. They have to question their own beliefs. And, you know, it's quite difficult to encourage that. When you believe in something, how something is done, how language is taught and learned, it's difficult to change that. But after that phase, everything is kind of easier, and a lot of creative ideas from the teachers that can be implemented at every level of education, language education. So that's how we proceeded.
Yeah, your article is very interesting, and you gave some good examples of some incoming beliefs. Do you want to share a few of those surprising incoming beliefs and how the same teachers then evolved?
Yeah, sure.
Just examples, yeah. Since we don't have a video.
Well, the most, I think, salient finding was how they were able to understand English as a lingua franca as a frame of reference. Because most of the time, when you introduce these topics or things to teachers, they tend to understand English as a lingua franca as a form of language or a teaching method, a method of teaching language. Of course, both of them are misconceptions. They're not true. In our case, we observed that teachers were able to understand English as a lingua franca as a frame of reference, as a set of principles that they can adjust their teaching according to. And this was, I think, the most important success of our study. But of course, these teachers in our case were curious teachers. They were willing to learn about the ELF concept, and they were open to learn about the ELF concept. With another group of teachers, of course, we might have observed very, very different things. Another thing, how they conceptualized this concept was it is something empowering for the learners because it gives kind of self-confidence and motivation to learners. They become more self-confident. They are not ashamed of their, for example, accent or the way they talk. And this gives them a kind of power, and they are now more motivated to learn the language and learn about the language. And yeah, I think these two aspects are the most important thing we achieved with the education.
Yeah, great. And a curiosity, how about ELF materials? Did you have, okay, first of all, how long, you said there were 3 steps. So how long do you want to tell everybody how long each step was, more or less, how many hours? And then also the materials or references kind of that you use. Thanks.
The education itself took 11 sessions over a period of, I think, over a period of 7 weeks, I guess. Yes, 7 weeks and 11 sessions. After the education, we gave some time to teachers to come up with ideas and plan a lesson and negotiate with each other, give feedback to each other, and discuss the feasibility of their plans. And after the week, we started to observe their implementations in the classroom. And then after the implementations, we interviewed them about these, the whole process, how they conceive the concept and how they put it into practice, and in terms of effectiveness, how they think they did in the lessons, experimental lessons. That was the process. We did not really provide teachers with materials. During the education, they saw example materials from different publications, but we did not prescribe any kind of teaching methods, or we didn't give them any materials. So they developed either their own materials, or they found their materials or adapted them from somewhere. However, the case of materials is quite interesting, because it turned out that most of the teachers had difficulty in finding suitable materials to implement alpha-aware teaching. And that was something they complained about. Yes, and in those cases, what we suggested, not suggested to teachers, but suggested in our publication is, there is a scarcity of materials, that's true. However, when you change your perspective, you have other options. For example, you can adapt your existing materials. Your existing material that is based on a native speaker norm can serve you for alpha-aware teaching. You can modify the existing material to align with the principles. You can, for example, ignite critical discussions out of the content in those in the textbook, or highlight the diversity of English speakers and the usage in multilingual context, etc. The other thing is collaboration. Since we encourage them to collaborate with each other, provide feedback to each other, one solution they found that they collaborated with each other, sometimes exchanged ideas and materials to use in their classrooms. That was another thing that could be done. And probably integration of technology can also, and did also help teachers a lot, because they had access to a lot of materials, even if they were not specifically or pedagogically produced for alpha-aware teaching. They had access to, for example, sample speech from speakers of different backgrounds. They had access to, for example, text produced by writers of different backgrounds that reflect different cultures, and they use these materials in their teaching. So yeah, that was what we observed, and how we observed that the teachers overcame this material scarcity problem.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, EMI and CLIL, and there's a real problem with materials for for post-primary. Anyways,
Yeah.
we have, I think, 3 more minutes, right, Carmen? Okay. No, okay. Well, if you'd like us to finish here, that's fine. Would you like to conclude, Yavuz, with the last thought, maybe about this, maybe some suggestions about how what we others might go about developing
Yeah,
health
sure.
awareness courses? Just maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, 1-2 minutes.
I think the most valuable thing we kind of found or observed was how the critical role of the assessment practices. The assessment practices in Turkey has a pivotal role. And it is interesting, and it is good that the institutions, most of the institutions, universities, have their in-house examinations. If students do not prefer to take IELTS or TOEFL, they can take the in-house exam of the institution. So it gives the institutions an opportunity to change the testing practices, or to make some adaptations on the testing practices that would again lead to changes in education. Because since the only concern of the students is to pass the exam, if exam requires certain things, they have to follow that route. But if the testing practices kind of involves this else perspective, and involves, for example, speeches from different backgrounds, involves the I mean, if it aligns with the needs of students in EMI classrooms, if it includes kind of tasks, the kind of tasks that students are supposed to carry out in EMI classrooms, then it would encourage changes in the teaching practices as well. I mean, the change in teaching practices would naturally follow that. That's our prediction. So the key change here seems to be encouraged on testing practices.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Yavuz,
Thank you.
for this insight.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Yavuz, Teresa, for your input. I know that you are an EMI expert, so you are so much into this issue. And thank you, Yavuz, for sharing so many things that I believe that I'm sure that they are common even in other contexts, like when you said that teachers become curious, open to learn, that we don't have suitable materials. It's important to collaborate with each other also in order to prepare materials, and also the importance of the integration of technology and some changes in the assessment practice. I'm sure you will have some questions at the very end. But now we're moving on. Thank you to the two of you. And we're moving on to the fourth and final interview, and this time is going to be Johanna Isohatala from Finland. And Johanna, you will be talking with Barbara, Stefanka, and Alena from Masaryk University in Brno, Czech Republic. It will be on turning the tables on online exam cheating. So we're very curious to know about this exam cheating via language mediation tasks. I'll give you the floor, Jana.
Thank you very much, and greetings actually from Germany. Although I am Finnish, I am now in Germany, Bochum, where I'm having an Erasmus exchange, and I have been welcomed so warmly by the Bochum Language Center. And yes, I had the pleasure to get to know this excellent article by Elena and Barbara and Stefanka. And I have some questions for you, but perhaps you could briefly introduce yourself before I ask the first question.
Good afternoon. So my name is Elena. If you don't mind, I will start with my introduction. I come from the Czech Republic, but like you, I'm not at home at the moment. I'm in Italy at the moment, in Fiesole at European University Institute, delivering a course. So that's why I am sitting in this beautiful place. I haven't even blurred it for you because it's La Capella, so it's a beautiful place to be. And I'm looking forward to talking to you. And I'm handing over to Barbara, who I am sure is in Brno and is going to...
Hello, yes, exactly. I am holding the fort here in Brno at Masaryk University. So I'm joining you from an office. And I'm also extending the greetings from Stepanka, who is the third team member who cannot be with us today, but she is with us in spirit, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we'll talk about your paper, which is about a way of, you're basically introducing a way of tackling cheating in online exams. And you have noted that especially throughout the Corona times, then when online teaching has increased and also online exams, a very typical problem would be cheating in those online exams, which are not invigilated in the same way as face-to-face exams. And you have chosen mediation as a means to overcome this problem in language testing. Why did you choose to use mediation?
You know, at the moment, it feels a bit like traveling in time. because as you've mentioned, we did this during the COVID situation, which is a long time ago. And so much has changed from, those times that it will feel a bit like funny talking about this. But we were testing from homes. We had no control over our students whatsoever. We couldn't establish any type of control over what they did at home. And we were aware of the fact that even if we used the test the way we had them for testing at school, some of the items would just be very easily copied, paste stuff, or fast Google translation, easy stuff. So we were looking for tasks where students would have to do a bit more work with the language. There would be some extra operation from them. So they would have to deliver something where they can't just easily Google or translate, copy paste, or just learn something by heart and then put it into the correct places. And obviously nowadays it would be even more difficult with AI in place, where even working with language in a higher cognitive way is much easier for you if you want to cheat. But at that time that was not an issue. And we teach professional language. We teach future lawyers. So our ESP is English for legal purposes. And at the same time, we were also looking at the new CFR, the new companion volume, which introduced the idea of mediation. And we could immediately see the potential in languages, in professional languages, because in case you think about tasks that would be like totally commonplace in a profession of a lawyer, that's definitely linguistic mediation. Because lawyers talk to clients, if they stick to legalese, they don't get very far. They just come across as maybe clever, but definitely posh and difficult to reach. So they need to learn the linguistic mediation as a part of their job, even in their native language. So to us, it makes a lot of sense even to introduce mediation into our sessions, and to introduce it into testing was like a logical step. I must say that we wouldn't be as bold as to say that we test mediation, because it's like it's a slightly different skill. So I would probably just say that we use the skill of mediation as a way to test students' language for specific purposes. So it's one of the tasks where we can see that students do something with the language, that they do higher cognitive operations with the language. So now we are back to normal, we are back to classroom, and we started testing in classrooms, but we kept mediation in it because it makes a lot of sense. And it's got a great pushback into our teaching as well. So we introduced many more mediation exercises, various types of exercises in our teaching as well. So maybe I've spoken for a bit too long, but I thought I needed to explain the whole journey behind mediation in our testing.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe we could then go to some concrete examples of what kind of mediation task you used in language testing. Could you give some examples and tell us how those prevented cheating?
Okay, so I will take over from Alena now, and I will talk you through our students' journey through our course. We teach students for 2 years, so they've got 4 semesters of legal English, and at each end of this term, now we are not sharing the screen any longer. Could you? I can't see the slide any longer.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you wanted it or not. So
Yes, please let the audience see that, because it will be easier for them to follow. So as I said, we test our students 4 times. They've got 3 and of course credit tests, and then an exam at the end. And in each of these like stepping stones towards the final completion of the test, they've got a mediation task. The whole test is not a mediation test, but it's just one task. And we teach them how to mediate step by step. So in the very first term, we start by just giving them the theory behind, teaching them what mediation is. Because for lawyers, the first meaning of mediation is, of course, an alternative dispute resolution. So they learn that linguistic mediation is something slightly different. Another thing that they need to come into terms with is that they actually need to mediate. Because for law students, learning legalese is something which reveals a huge potential, and they're very proud of the new fancy words that they learn, and they don't really want to abandon them. So that's another thing that we need to teach them, that there are horses for courses. So it's fine if they talk to a fellow lawyer whom they need to impress, and also for the precision of the communication. But when they need to talk to a client, they need to adjust the language. So in the first term, we give them what we call a close mediation test. It's a dialogue within which there is a gap, in which they have a space for the explanation of the term. So that's what Alena was talking about earlier, that's the original mediation task which we had in the online context, where we didn't want students to copy and paste, but we gave them the scenario in order to change the information a little bit, and also the language a bit. So even if they looked a term up online, we wouldn't mind that much. In the second term, we give them a little bit more freedom, and we add one open question that would be legal advice. So again, this would be a dialogue, and at the end, they would be asked to help the client forward with their case. In the third term, then we believe that they already know a bit about the law, and we give them much more freedom. It's not gaps any longer, it's just full utterances, and we will show you an example of that a little bit later, where they can actually give their personal opinion or professional opinion. And also we introduce a tiny cross-language mediation task. The client says that they came across a word in the Czech language, which they don't understand, and they ask the lawyer to explain in English. And finally, for the exam, we are now piloting a completely new task, which involves cross-language mediation. They've got an authentic legal document they need to work with and mediate the content of this one. Now, Jana, would you please show the next slide? Here we've got an example of the first type of text. That's what I called close mediation task. So as you can see, this is a complaint, informal context. A friend is talking to another friend who is a lawyer, who happens to be a lawyer, and this friend is complaining about a legal problem. They wanted to buy a Picasso's painting, but the deal didn't come through. And now the lawyer is advising specific performance. Now, if the student looked that up online, they would learn that this is a order of the court that enforces a contract. Or you could also read that a party in breach needs to perform the contract or something like that. And here, as you can see, the beginning of the sentence, the most fitting would be specific performance. It may be used in situations. So we want them to apply this knowledge and use it for this particular scenario. And here we've got a student answer example. When the monetary compensation is not enough. If you wanted that painting, you cannot be satisfied with money, so no damages for this person, because the thing you truly wanted was the painting. So you can see this is quite a complex sentence. They apply the knowledge and they use it in the context of the dialogue. Then the dialogue goes on and they've got two more terms: force majeure clause and frustration. Now, Alena is going to talk about the third type of task, I think.
It started pouring with rain here, so if you hear it in the background, I just hope it's soothing and not...
It's not disturbing.
Okay, good. I'm glad. This type of a task is more like an open-ended mediation test that we use with our second-year students, and we give them more space, basically. For the sake of reliability, we follow the same pattern in all the test versions, and we just put in like situations that we've discussed during the semester, because our test is pro-achievement, so a part of it is testing proficiency, but part of it is testing achievement in the language for specific purposes. So that's why we choose like situations from the types of content that was delivered during that particular semester. So it's always a scenario that goes like this. There is a client who has a problem. The client is asking for the best possible way to solve it, and the lawyer is given the space to respond to that problem. The client asks, is there a second best option to choose from? Then the lawyer gives the second best option, depending on what they think is fit for the situation. Then, because we are at B2 level, the client asks for an explanation of advantages and disadvantages of either of the options. Again, the lawyer needs to respond, use comparing, contrasting language in this. Then the client picks the first option and asks for like what he needs to do next. So again, instructions from the lawyer, what is expected from the client. And then finally, there is this inter-language mediation bit where the client is not sure about the meaning of a Czech legal term related to the topic. He asks for an explanation and whether it is relevant in his or her situation. And again, we expect that the lawyer will respond. So it has a flow. It's quite an organic task, which I think brings a certain authenticity to it. So students kind of know some sort of flow is expected from them. Just to be perfectly honest, after pre-testing, when we were right at the beginning of these tasks, we were slightly disappointed with some students' production because either they gave advice that was not very helpful. So there was enough language, but not the language that we could work with. Or they would treat it as a grid for notes rather than something that should flow. So we realized that it needed a little bit of training in our students, explaining them how they are supposed to treat mediation tasks, which meant the wash back into our session to do mediations a lot, and to make sure that they hear the word mediation, 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 until they are totally sick of it, but they will know what they are expected to do when we ask them to mediate information in the test format.
Okay, you already started talking a little bit about what's your perspective on the students' outcome. So how did you do the evaluation of these tasks?
So again, at the beginning, we agreed on something. We did even some benchmarking, but then with the poor results, we questioned the validity of the test, because we thought, is it actually doing what we were expecting from it? But with some extra work on it, and with the washback into our sessions, we became quite happy with the outcome. And this is the result of the washback and repairing the misconceptions in our students, so to say. So we thought we asked for 5 answers from our students. Each answer would be 2 points, 1 point for the relevance of the answer and 1 point for coherence. So that would make 10 points altogether in case everything goes smoothly. For 1 term answer, just 1 word, not even a sentence, and no further information, we would award 0 points. That would not be satisfactory at all. So that's like a red line for us when there is not enough language to look at. For let's say a correct term and incorrect explanation, or vice versa, we would award 1 point. And then we would be looking into the language as well. So altogether, out of 5 points, 2 points would go to grammar, including range and accuracy. 2 points for vocabulary, because that's the achievement part in our testing. Again, range, accuracy. And then we thought we needed 1 point, like a little bit like in figure skating, for the overall impression. We call it the overall impression, but it contains a lot. It's like politeness, formality, cohesion, correspondence with clients' needs. In other words, would we as clients be happy with such answers? So we've got these rubrics, 15 points altogether, and so far they work for us. We've been quite happy.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned that you started this work some time ago. So have you moved forward, or have you introduced new changes to how you're working with mediation?
Yes, absolutely. So what you are looking at right now is our new project, something we are working on right now, this very minute. And you can see there is a letter in Czech, in the mother tongue of our students. And this is a criminal order which informs a person, in this case, Mr. Romeo Montague, that he's been found guilty of stalking Miss Juliet, and he's been sentenced to a suspended sentence of imprisonment. There is also the section at the very bottom, the box, which says that unless Mr. Montague protests this court ruling, he is going to serve the sentence. That he has the option of protesting, sending a letter back saying that he is not accepting this sentence, and in such a case, a trial would take place. Now, what you see on the right side of the slide are the instructions for our students. So now they are in the role of an advocate who actually needs to give legal advice based on the document. So an adding value to what Google Translate would do. There really needs to be some legal knowledge, like telling the client that this is really serious, it's not a joke. It is something that needs to start dealing with. And we piloted it this term, and we are also doing it for the first time as a part of our exam. So at this point, we've had the first set of students doing a similar task, and so far they are doing really well. Some of them just translate the text, and they don't realize the importance of the role of actually giving legal advice. So we will need to take that into consideration as Alana talked about washback. So reinforce it a bit more next year in the final term, telling them they're really now the experts, the people who can change the course of life of their clients. So here you can see marking criteria, which we actually use in the exam. It's just a small part of the exam. The exam is very complex, but this is for the mediation task. So you can see that they need to communicate to the client what the matter is, that they are found guilty and what the offense is, what the legal consequences are, so that they might actually go to prison, that the sentence is suspended. That needs to be explained, that unless they re-offend, they actually won't need to serve the prison sentence. And the legal advice. So this would be up to an individual student saying whether they think that their client should protest or not. So we don't judge them on that. That's their expertise. We just look at the language. That's where they are experts, and where we are just language instructors. So you can see that our red line is communicating the relevant information to the client. Then we look at the right register. We also look at the structure of the letter, but the vocabulary is accurate and relevant to the client. And there's also a rubric for grammar. So far, when I was correcting I've corrected about 30 tests so far. So most people, if they had any problems, that would be with legal advice, and possibly sometimes with clarity. So that would be structure, coherence, or cohesion. But generally, I think the results are quite impressive. And even though we need to practice a bit more, we believe that this is the way forward in our context, because this is a skill that our students really need. And even in the times where a letter can be drafted by AI or with the help of AI, this is where they need to show their presence and their legal skills.
Yes, excellent. And if I may say, this is, I was really impressed by your action research method here, that you really, there were also in the paper, there were steps, you clearly had many steps where you reflected upon what you were doing and what you had done, what are the results, then you modified, and you again you redesigned, and you again reflected and made changes. So it's an ongoing process, and it's wonderful to see that you are again making new findings with your new design.
We're very fortunate to have a very strong team. It's eight legal English teachers, and we sort of cooperate, and that helps a lot.
Excellent. That was our official questions.
Thank you, Jana, for your contribution. Thank you, Elena and Barbara, for actually sharing this intense assessment experience that you've been having with your students. Elena, you must be also a little bit disappointed with finding rain in Italy in May. We know
this
how it
actually,
goes.
at this moment, I know that nobody's going to come in here. I was wondering whether the porter might be checking on me because I stayed a bit longer in La Capella. But now I know that nobody's going to intrude, so that's actually the perfect situation for me.
I was looking at the background and I had this impression of this Tuscany atmosphere.
Yes, yes, it is
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay. Now, thanks a lot to all of you, all of you. It was really interesting. We also had some comments from the people who have already had to leave. And now I think we have time for a couple of questions from you, the participants. Samuel has left, so the questions will be, yeah, okay. The questions will be for the other three interviews. I have one, a very simple one, for actually Barbara and Elena. I was just wondering, the number of students that you have, you know, with this kind of assessment, you probably need to have not a large number of students, but please let us know.
Actually, we've got about 500 students a year. So at the moment, we will be examining 500 students who would take the legal English exam, but it's 8 of us. So there are 8 instructors who examine the students. So the work is distributed among 8 people.
Yeah.
But yes, it is very demanding, especially taken into consideration that mediation is just one part of the whole exam.
Yeah, can you imagine? Thank you. Any other question?
Well, I would like to ask about mediation and AI. Mediation and AI. So what do you think? Have you already started thinking about adapting again your exam or assessment? And it's something which you're all, you know, worried about or concerned by.
Yeah.
So
At the moment, we are back in the classroom on pen and paper. So that's that's done for the moment because
yes, it's maybe done for the testing situation, but as for the life context or the action oriented part of assessment, so will future lawyers, they will probably work with AI.
Sure,
and
they will.
Yeah, and then of course also during our training and teaching, we will have to prepare them. Yeah.
From my own perspective, when AI became something so easily reached, I thought like writing emails is not an authentic task anymore because you just need to be a good prompter. So you write a couple of prompts into ChatGPT or whatever you use, and you get a great email. And if it's not great, then it just needs a couple of final touches or a bit of argument with AI so that it improves it. So it's like, for me, that's a huge question, because I think that like generally writing will change a lot within the system. Like I don't think that we should stop teaching writing because students need that skill, even if just for the fact that they know what a good text looks like and what it takes to write a good text. So they need to be able to write well in order to prompt well. But then I think, like with calculators, if you just, if you are trained in doing sums and multiplying and all that stuff, you just do the basic stuff without a calculator. But whenever you are worried that you will make a mistake or your numbers are high, you just go to the calculator. And I think that's a similar, very similar to what you do with AI at the moment. If you just write a few words to somebody, then there is no need to open a chat for that. Or if you, you know, if you just, if it's a standard reply or it's not a high stakes communication, but in case it is high stakes or it's more complex, you might want to use AI, even if just for checking your piece of writing, or and sometimes you just want a suggestion to start from. So I think that that we will have to follow what's going on, and especially at university level, it's probably not our task to train students in something like this, like writing an email, because that's pretty simplistic. But it will be more a question of writing good prompts. So maybe, I don't know, it's just losing the whole idea of cohesion, getting the tone right, stuff like that. So I have my worries in a way. On the other hand, I'm sort of, you know, can't wait, looking forward to what's going to happen.
Yeah,
I might just add a recent experience as well. One of the last topics that we covered was employment law. And I asked our students to write just a paragraph or a cover letter. And all the cover letters were wonderful. So the best students wrote them themselves. The weak students used AI to assist them. And I think that it sort of levels the ground. So the people who will not use AI to maybe just check the tiny mistakes will be at a disadvantage. So I think that's something like that needs to be taken into consideration as well. So actually, a brilliant students' piece of work, if they do it themselves, might not be as good as a weaker student's assisted one. And the employer will not care. They will need to check the oral skills later on.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So it's also about trust, yes. So because it's a communication between these future lawyers and their clients. And these future lawyers, of course, use different tools and resources, but still the client has to believe that the advice or the text or the communication they get by the lawyer is trustworthy. Yes. So I think all these aspects of trust and communication building, rapport building, will perhaps become important, even more important again, since we have all these tools which help on the language level. Yeah. So thanks a lot to all of you for this wonderful exchange, and I hope you feel inspired to have a look at more articles in this issue and the previous one, and perhaps you can also engage in future writing or invite colleagues to use our platform to share the outcomes of their research and their writing, or even common research. Very nice also to have some teams offering sharing a common project experience. So thanks a lot to all of you, and looking forward to seeing you at the different occasion, be it at another webinar of our journal, or be it in person at our CercleS conference in Durham in September. So it would be great to see some of you in person, to meet there and to continue our discussions. So thanks a lot, and also to Carmen and to Mia and Zan for preparing, hosting, and organizing the meeting. And yeah, looking forward to another one.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you,
very
Sabrina.
much.
In fact, if we have one more minute, Mia, we have two final slides that we wanted to show to the participants. And in fact, one is just, yes, so this is just announcing to all of you that the new issue 14.1 is already online. Once again, the title that we gave to this issue is Worldwide Voices of Experience in Language Education. And you can access it through the De Gruyter website, or if you are a CercleS member, obviously through the CercleS website. And then the final slide where we announce the CercleS conference that will be held at the University of Durham. And we really hope that we will meet, if not all of you, but most of you there. As Sabina said, be in touch through the journal and through our webinars in the future. And we really hope to meet in person. That is the most important thing. Okay, thank you, Mia.
Thank you, Carmen, again. And thank you, everybody, for your interest and attention, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You, buonasera.